Under the soft morning light of Washington, the tone in the US Capitol feels charged yet controlled. The Treasury building, an emblem of financial power, stands quiet, but inside, a significant decision has just been made public. Scott Bessent, the newly assertive US Treasury Secretary, has announced an intervention in global currency markets. His message is deliberate, measured, and unmistakably political. The United States has begun purchasing Argentine pesos to stabilize the fragile economy of President Javier Milei. From the very first line of his post on X, Bessent signals intent. The Treasury purchased pesos on Thursday in the blue chip swap and in the spot market, he wrote, adding that Washington remains in close communication with the Argentine economic team. The statement, brief but consequential, sent ripples through both Wall Street and Latin America. For Argentina, this move marks a moment of rare relief. The country's peso, long battered by inflation and public mistrust, had been under immense pressure. For the United States, it's a strategic gesture, one that echoes through the corridors of diplomacy. Scott Bessent appears before reporters at the Treasury podium, calm, confident. He starts by addressing another issue weighing on the global economy, the escalating trade friction between Washington and Beijing. While there are substantial actions we could take, we'd rather not, he says. I believe China is open to discussion, and I am optimistic this can be de-escalated. Ultimately, we are confident in the strong relationship between President Trump and President Xi. His words offer reassurance to jittery markets. The message, diplomacy, still matters, even amid economic nationalism. But within seconds, Bessent pivots to a more pointed tone. Not only is China fueling Russia's war, he warns, China's actions have once again demonstrated the risk of being dependent on them, on rare earths. And for that matter, anything, he pauses, then adds a line that lands with force. If China wants to be an unreliable partner to the world, then the world will have to decouple. The world does not want to decouple. We want to de-risk. The shift is striking from cooperative language to hard realism. It underscores a fundamental tension in Trump's second-term economic policy, a desire to reassert US leverage while avoiding outright rupture. As his remarks circulate globally, the camera cuts to Buenos Aires. Inside a currency exchange office, a woman counts bundles of pesos, her hands moving quickly under the fluorescent light. This, in essence, is what the intervention aims to protect, the value of a currency that has, for years, been synonymous with instability. Back in Washington, Bessent continues. I come with some good news this morning, he says, a faint smile crossing his face. Because of the Schumer shutdown, Treasury hasn't been able to release the exact numbers, but the CBO jumped the gun. And it was on Bloomberg this morning. The deficit for this fiscal year ending September 30th will be slightly lower. He pauses again. The journalists in the room shuffle their notes. And more importantly, he continues, the deficit to GDP now has a 5 in front of it. According to the CBO numbers, it will fall from about 6.5% to 5.9%. A modest improvement, perhaps, but one the administration is eager to highlight. The message is clear. Fiscal discipline is back, and Washington's books are improving just as its allies abroad need help. Cut to the White House. The autumn sun spills across the South Lawn as US President Donald Trump greets Argentine President Javier Milei. Cameras flash, questions fly. A reporter shouts, President Trump, is Hamas holding up their end of the deal, sir? Trump replies curtly, we'll find out. Another question follows, your message to the people of Argentina? Trump smiles, we love them. Be there for them, and they have a great leader inside. The two leaders meet privately. The agenda, financial stabilization, bilateral trade, and Argentina's future under Milei's libertarian reforms. For both men, the symbolism is potent. Trump, the self-styled architect of a new economic order, and Milei, the radical economist turned president, united by ideology and timing. In Trump's words, our approvals are somewhat subject to who wins the election, because if a socialist, or in the case of New York City, a communist, wins, you feel a lot differently about making an investment. He leans forward. If somebody wins and has no chance of ever having a great economy because of that philosophy, you would put a halt to what we're doing. It's a rare, candid moment and a window into the transactional nature of this support. Then comes Milei's turn. Standing beside Trump, his voice carries emotion. I also want to deeply thank Secretary Scott Bessent for the enormous work he has done to help overcome this liquidity problem that Argentina had. He says, as a result of the political attacks we have suffered from our opponents who do not want Argentina to once again embrace the ideas of freedom. His gratitude is unmistakable. In Spanish, his tone grows firmer. Agradezco profundamente el enorme trabajo que ha hecho el secretario Bessent para ayudar a superar este problema de liquidez. To Milei, the US intervention is not just an economic gesture, it's an ideological validation. The images that follow capture this alignment vividly. Trump and Milei shaking hands under the White House colonnade, the US and Argentine flags fluttering side by side. It's both a photo op and a signal that Washington's economic diplomacy is now as much about loyalty as it is about liquidity. Beyond the ceremony, however, the mechanics of the blue chip swap tell a more complex story. In practice, it's a financial maneuver allowing US investors to purchase undervalued Argentine assets abroad and sell them locally at a profit. But for Bessent, it's more than an arbitrage strategy. It's leverage. By injecting dollars into Argentina's currency system, the US Treasury is effectively propping up Milei's reform agenda while anchoring American influence in South America's volatile markets. Economists describe it as a managed rescue, but it's also a test. Washington's $40 billion commitment, a blend of public and private capital, is one of the largest financial lifelines ever extended to Buenos Aires. In exchange, Milei's government must deliver what Trump calls results. Meanwhile, in Argentina, scenes of cautious optimism unfold. Outside the central bank, the peso stabilizes marginally. Traders exchange cautious smiles, and the media speak of un respiro, a breath. But in the streets, skepticism lingers. The memory of past IMF deals, austerity waves, and inflationary spirals runs deep. For ordinary Argentines, Washington's support raises hope and suspicion in equal measure. Back in the Treasury corridors, Bessent's team works to operationalize the intervention. Analysts track peso liquidity hour by hour. Officials from the Federal Reserve coordinate technical adjustments. The message is that Washington can act swiftly when ideology and economics align. At the same time, geopolitical echoes ripple outward. Bessent's earlier comments on China are not isolated. They frame this intervention within a broader context. By stabilizing Argentina, Washington is also countering Beijing's deepening reach in Latin America, where China has poured billions into infrastructure, lithium, and energy. Trump's administration, still battling Beijing over tariffs and technology, sees Argentina as a potential ally in reshaping the hemisphere's financial map. For Milei, whose campaign was built on the rhetoric of freedom over socialism, the symbolism of US backing is invaluable. In Buenos Aires, cameras capture a quieter scene, a market vendor exchanging pesos for dollars at a street stall. The blue rate and the informal currency benchmark begins to dip slightly. It's a small but telling shift. The intervention, though technical in design, has psychological power. It signals confidence, and confidence in Argentina's markets is half the battle. Over the following days, Argentine media replay the White House handshake again and again. Headlines speak of a strategic embrace. Analysts debate whether Washington's move is a genuine rescue or a geopolitical gambit. Either way, the optics favor both leaders. Trump as a global dealmaker, Milei as the reformer backed by the world's largest economy. Back in Washington, Bessent summarizes the logic succinctly. The US Treasury has the capacity to act flexibly and forcefully to stabilize Argentina. The phrasing recalls past moments of American intervention, from Mexico's 1995 bailout to post-crisis Europe. But the political calculus here is different. Argentina's rescue is less about contagion and more about alignment. As night falls over the White House, a final image lingers. Two presidents, ideologically bound, shaking hands against a backdrop of flags. For Trump, it's another symbol of restored American influence. For Milei, it's a moment of validation, a sign that his libertarian experiment has, at least for now, found a powerful patron. And for Scott Bessent, the man at the center of this financial choreography, it's proof that markets and politics are never far apart. His intervention may be written in numbers and swaps, but its true currency is confidence, the belief that America's reach once again can steady the world's uncertain economies. Across the Atlantic, traders, diplomats, and economists will continue to debate whether this marks the start of a new era of dollar diplomacy or a short-term maneuver. But one fact remains: the United States has chosen to stand by Argentina, not just with words, but with billions, and that in global finance speaks louder than anything else.